Welcome to the Greenway Outdoors Podcast, your trusted source for outdoor information and entertainment. The Greenway Outdoors is also an internationally syndicated TV show and conservation advocate aimed at bringing millennials and Generation Z into the outdoors. Welcome to the Greenway Outdoors. Hello and welcome to episode 49 of the Greenway Outdoors Podcast. I'm Kyle.
It's good to be back. I'm AJ.
I'm Ryan.
AJ, I don't think your mic was on. And I'm going to blame you. Say it again.
Check 1, 2.
And Jeff's here. I think he's in the potty. But anyhow.
In the potty?
I think, you know what I think it is?
He's a problem about falling in.
He does.
Nice.
Last time I found him, his knees were in his chin and his feet were in.
He just heard, help, help.
His voice gets about as high as mine when he needs help in the bathroom.
Oh, yeah. It's weird. I've heard it.
Yeah. But it does feel good to be back, but we've been gone for, I think,
since November.
Last night was like my first time sleeping in my bed in 22 or 23 days, something like that.
Yep.
Just an incredible amount of time. We went to Washington, and I'm not going to dive too deep into every single thing because, number one, they're episodes that you've got to watch of our actual TV show. But beyond that, we've got weeks and weeks of content of different stories and stuff that we're going to cover about it. But with that being said, we went to Washington. After we went to Washington, we went to Hawaii. After we went to Hawaii, we went to, we got home, and then we went up to deer camp.
Straight away.
And then after deer camp, we went right into filming of the cooking.
Yep.
And between all of those trips and all of that stuff, it was so tiring, but man, was it fun.
Yeah.
And it also led to us not making a podcast for 3 weeks, so.
That's true.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Jeff.
I was gonna.
How's the toilet?
We talked about you needing help from the potty. Was that you screaming?
Like you fell in, maybe?
No.
It's okay, buddy. So out of the trips, one of them, and we're going to cover this on the actual specific segment on an event that happened, was Washington. So the idea was we went to Washington to do a chucker hunt with Ryan's brother, who actually has an incredible German wire-haired dog, which is technically a Draughtar because of its training and breeding and everything like that. We'll get into that a little bit later on. But we had quite the trip. I would say that Hawaii's got to be my favorite part. I know now that I'm basically a professional surfer, which I didn't know that.
All I needed was a couple hours of training. I'm good.
Yeah, that's it.
Three waves on a bunny hill, and he's an expert.
Bunny hill.
But I would say that how successful we were is what made me what I liked most about it. And one of the things that we're going to cover that I found really fascinating was, when you think of United States, you always include Hawaii and Alaska. But given the fact that we were 4,000 miles from home going to Hawaii, and that's from Michigan.
Big distance.
Yeah, it was to go there and hear and learn about the politics and the culture that's there now and what was there before and how it's developed and like what people's thoughts are there and how things operate. I found that to be one of the most fascinating parts of the entire trip. So, yeah. Ryan, you look fatter than I remember in that video. But, that was, and we also did some spearfishing while we were there in Hawaii as well.
One of us did.
I said we did some spearfishing, and that is
true. That is not a lie.
That's
accurate statement.
accurate.
How funny. I was thinking about it after I ended up getting pretty sick while we were out there. Turns out, didn't know this, you can get seasick while in the sea.
I didn't know that either.
I thought that was something that would happen to the camera guys in the boats following us, which it did.
Yeah, I got a little green, and that's unusual for me. I don't usually get...
Dude, it was so wavy.
The more I thought about it, the more it makes sense, though. If you're snorkeling and you're looking down at the bottom, so you don't see movement because you're just staring at the bottom. Meanwhile, your whole body is going like this because of the waves. It would make sense that you'd get sick.
Yeah.
I've snorkeled for like 30 seconds prior to this, so I guess.
Prior to this.
Right.
I didn't think that was a thing, but apparently it's a thing.
Yeah, I was like not good. And the guy we went with, his name was Kyoki.
Kyoki. Brother
Also-
Kyoki. Couldn't be cooler dudes.
Could not be cooler dudes. Who I might add he is like fully Samoan, like 100%. He has the tattoos, the tribal tattoos all the way up his arm and everything like that. He's a very tan man, and he's got a stomach on him, but he's also like jacked. Like he was probably like 6 foot, probably like 260, 270.
Yeah, probably.
And I would not mess with that man. And then when I saw him, I was like, I hope I'm on his good side.
Yeah.
And then we started talking, And he's like the sweetest little sweetheart you ever met in your life. And he's like the nicest
awesome.
guy. He goes to me, when I was snorkeling, he goes, I like came up and it like hit me like a ton of bricks that, I'm sick. Like I'm feeling nauseous and dizzy right now. And it was about an hour and a half, 2 hours into snorkeling. And I'm like, I don't feel well. And I didn't anticipate that because I'm in the water, and at the surface. And he's like, Brother Kyle, you look a little green. I go, Brother Kiyoki, I don't feel so good. And then I almost died trying to swim to shore. And that was like the one thing Jeff did that made his life worthwhile.
Apparently, I almost died trying to save you because I'm swimming in. I look up and see there's rocks and there's waves going like crashing up against them. Like, okay, we can't go there.
I was willing to go there.
Kind of like it looks not as bad over to the left, so we'll go over there. So I start swimming you over there. And you're like, I'm panicking. I'm like, okay, if you say you're panicking, that means there's a problem.
I was
because
legit
otherwise
panicking.
You won't say nothing.
Let me set the scene a little bit more first then, so I don't sound like a total wimp. Okay. We go out there. We're out there.
To be clear.
Yeah.
Total wimp.
We go out there for like an hour and a half. And in that time, you're treading water with weights on the entire time.
Oh, that's right.
So there's a level of tiredness that you get. On top of that, we didn't eat anything that morning because I couldn't eat the breakfast sandwich that you probably hogged down. But I didn't have time.
I ate it at a normal pace. And right when Steve gave it to us, instead of, I don't even know what you were doing. You were just off for like 5-6 minutes.
I was setting up with our host, practicing for our interviews so that they'd be ready to go once the cameras got there. It's like
it was a show.
I was helping Mike them and stuff like that. So
Best believe I wasn't touching those sandwiches.
Yeah, Ryan hates breakfast sandwiches. Everything's spam in Hawaii, by the way.
Hates things that are convenient and taste good.
Yeah. But anyhow, we're out. I'm talking to them and everything like that. But we end up going in the water, and you're treading water for like an hour and a half with weights, and I hadn't had anything to drink, and I was really thirsty on top of it. So I did my best to drink as much salt water as possible, during the actual snorkeling process and everything. But you're ingesting salt water, so you're getting more dehydrated. On top of that, I didn't realize it, though, that I'm on the surface for that time, and you're getting a little tired, spending that much time treading water and stuff. You're getting physically tired. And then on top of it, the water is just the waves and everything like that because you're at the surface, and it just was the perfect storm for me. And the only way back in, because we swam out, was to swim back in. But that was
swam out like
a half mile.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, so that is swimming a half mile in,
especially when you're dead,
with waves, current, dehydration, dizziness, and the most nauseous you've ever been in your life.
Yeah.
I just looked at where shore was. I looked at the rocks that they're like, don't go there, don't go there. And I was like,
go with this.
I was like, dude, I hope I bash my brains into one of those rocks and end this. And I when I thought that, I turned around and looked at Jeff. I go, you need to help me because I'm panicking. And that's what I said. That's all I said. And he's like,
before this.
I was very blunt about it.
Right before you started panicking, right when you were still by the boat, you're like, I need water. I need water. So Steve throws you a bottle of water into the ocean.
Oh, no.
So it's got salt on the bottle. There's salt around the bottle. You open it up, and what was it?
This is the worst part. My man doesn't bring us any water. And we had like 3 huge waters. He doesn't bring those. He's like, well, I made some electrolyte water.
Oh, yeah.
And what that was the most disgusting orange flavor, but salty orange flavor because it was electrolyte water, so there's salt in it.
It's great.
So the relief that I need from salt water is fresh, clean water, and I take a huge swig of salty orange throw up instead. And I'm like, you just made my and I went.
God, I haven't had electrolytes in forever.
I was like, hey. This isn't what I ordered. So that was pretty rough. And you're like trying to tread water and drink at the same time. You're like, it's like so bad.
Hey, are you drinking and dancing?
Yeah,
It's not allowed.
Yeah, that's right. It's against the law in Maui to drink alcoholic beverages
and dance
at the same time.
And it's enforced.
And it's an enforced
apparently
law.
heavily enforced. Yeah.
Yeah. Didn't you have a friend or something that got a fine or something like that? She said.
I did not know that.
I didn't realize that Footloose was actually filmed in Hawaii.
Yes. They prohibit
Ain't no dancing.
They prohibit it.
I just want to dance. What
So then once all that comes in and I start swimming in, and now I swim to the rocks, that was the opposite direction of in. So now I've swam to the rocks that
that's the closest thing you can get to. So logically, with you being freaking out and panicking, that kind of makes sense.
But once I got there, even I was like, well, that's not going to work.
No.
Imagine the most slippery, hard, sharp surfaces ever with crashing waves with incredible force going over him constantly. I was like, well, this was a wasted swim.
So I see him. He's panicking. He's freaking out. I finally get to him.
I didn't freak out. I said it calm.
Like, buddy, I'm gonna bring you in, okay? He's like, okay. And he just kind of like relaxes, like, okay, he's there. He's going to save me. So I grab his arm and I start looking for somewhere where we can at least stand up. You know, there's rocks around. Maybe we can find a place where we can stand up for a second, get our bearings, and then keep going. I look down. Kyle, same idea. He's got his foot down and he's like prodding around for somewhere to step right into a moray eel.
You kidding?
He's like maybe maybe 2 feet away.
And I'm just prodding at him.
And this thing is swimming and kind of looking at him, and I'm like, we gotta go. So I yank so that his foot will come up.
Yeah.
And now he's flat on the water, and I'm...
Yeah, it was funny to me because I remember thinking at the time, you know what, this... For a best friend, he's freaking useless. and then all of a sudden...
If he's gonna jerk me the whole way in, and then I'm not doing this.
Here's the messed up thing, though. When I thought that, all of a sudden, my man here decides he's going to help a lot and fast and in the other direction right now. So I was like... I remember thinking, did I say that out loud? Like, did I say you're useless out loud, or did he just... But now I know
if you did, I would have left you. To be clear.
Jeff looked like the SpongeBob movie when David Hasselhoff was...
That's what I'm kind of
I'm just like, got my arms down like this. I'm going 45 miles an hour.
No, he hooked me up, though. He drugged me in, and then we ended up climbing up on less dangerous rocks, but they weren't good either.
They met us over there, and they're like, you need to get out now. And I'm like, what's the big deal? We're standing on rock. We're above the water. I get him out, and I turn around to go back in right as a wave comes in, and it's about knee deep. And it forces me in. I almost ripped my pants. Thank goodness I didn't.
I ripped my pants in Washington pretty good.
And then got back in and then went out and had a great day.
Yeah.
It was great.
And shot 2 fish.
AJ, how was your day that day?
It was a crazy day.
Which part specifically sticks out to you as like the memory that you made that day?
Made something you didn't make. What?
When you went swimming.
I'm not commenting.
I'm not commenting. So AJ had the worst luck ever.
Why does this have to be broadcasted?
That's all I'm saying is you fell in the water.
It's an important part of the story.
Okay.
No, while we were out there, we've had glitches with different drones before where they would disconnect and it's like, hey, why are you doing that? While we're in Hawaii, while we're filming this, amongst being disgustingly sick, I get to the shore Jeffrey gets me to. He goes back out like a psychopath to spearfish more and succeeds. I got to hand it to you. I tear you down a lot, but that was your day.
We came there for 3 episodes, and we were getting 3 episodes.
I'm so proud of you.
You stayed out there for hours.
Yeah.
That was great. I still can't wear regular shoes, though, because I've got blisters on the back of my feet from those fins, because I brought out socks to wear.
No. That's not something to graze over. Don't you dare do what you
needed my socks.
No. Do you remember?
Baby size
I remember.
Was still too big for this guy.
Ryan, tell the story.
Little baby paws on his feet. So he had to borrow my socks and then also use his socks.
Don't act like
fit into
Don't
the fins,
act like you deserve.
just to then steal them and then not even use them and just go in.
Do not act like you deserve to have socks that day. Ryan, what actually happened?
So before we went out, Kyle was getting all his things around and packing up all this stuff, as well as Jeff. And Kyle says, do you think we should bring socks? And Jeff stood up and looked at Kyle like he had
7 heads.
Yeah. Like he was some sort of monster.
You need socks.
And then he tore me up and down every which way but Tuesday about the fact that I said we should bring socks. It actually became a spat, if you will, and we went at it, and then he ended up giving in, as he always does, like a little girl, and then brought socks, and he brings socks.
Once we have a disagreement, there's no folding. Even if it's like, oh, you know what? Now that I think about it, or something else has happened, that is a good idea. There's no,
it's
you can't
death.
commit to that. You have to commit to the thing you said, and then if you want to bring the thing yourself, you got to do it
privately.
In secret.
Because you could never admit that you were wrong.
So I smuggle socks to this event, and then he
Nice.
stole them from me.
Yeah, well,
And
then we
died.
get there, and the guy's only got like size 10 flippers. I'm like a 9.
He had like size 12 to 13, size 10, and then the next one was like size 6. It's like, buddy,
I said I was 9.
what were you planning here?
Yeah. What kind of freaky
You
people?
want to try to kid size, brother?
That's what he said. I wish I
No.
would have. That would have been less strain. Those giant fins
Yeah.
are great for going fast,
Yeah.
but they are hell on your ankles over time, like those big, long, giant fins that we were running. But anyhow, while we were out there, AJ was flying the drone to get it and getting all the footage of it, and you saw it in the video there, the drone going over us, and all of a sudden, it disconnected, which it says like, what does it say on the screen when that happens? Because it's happened before.
Disconnected.
Yeah, just disconnected. And it's like, well, I didn't do nothing. And then normally the drone would go back to the home of where it was launched from. But instead, ours went 60 miles an hour out to sea. And we never saw it again.
Yeah, it went like straight into the abyss.
She gone. So our hope is, if you're listening, DJI, it's your fault. And we like a refund.
But we love your product
Yeah, and we want it back.
when it doesn't do this.
Yes, but we want our stuff back. So if you're out there in Maui and you happen to stumble across a drone and it landed in your boat,
Bottom of the ocean.
do the right thing.
the right thing.
Just send us the
Send her
SD
home.
card. The footage is worth more than the drone is.
Send her home.
Send it back.
Yeah.
But it happens.
And
Now what? I don't know. AJ does this thing where if he's stressed out, he does as much as he can to fix it powerfully and fast
he started hitting people
with
That's
as
what we're
much
trying to say.
momentum as possible, but not always
We walk
thinking
in,
through his
street
actions.
brawl at the ramp.
The ramp.
I don't know. Who knows if they know something?
was
Well,
like-
now they're not going to tell you.
But there's nothing you could do in this scenario.
So AJ went rogue because he was upset about the drone. And then what happened? Like, where did you go? And then what happened?
I was just trying to find if there was an explanation on why I did it. Maybe there was these small little rock islands around the coast there, and maybe by miracle it could have gone there and found land.
Right.
So I just started trekking that way.
Like a
and
beast.
Gonna find it.
Thank goodness I had water shoes because that might have been the most brutal terrain I've ever encountered.
Yeah, it's like lava,
It ain't
lava
no-
rocks,
But smooth.
smooth,
but still sharp,
but then
though.
randomly sharp,
Like
slippery.
very sharp.
lava
I now
rocks.
understand the Castaway scene where he falls into that coral and it just punctures his body. It makes sense now.
Oh.
I never understood why, but I get it now.
Yeah, it makes.
Water will shape anything to be as sharp as you can be.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, so he went out after it and then fell or something. What happened?
I just got hit against the rock walls and
His legs are tore up.
When a force drags you against something with such pressure, you're like, this is insane. The conditions were just insane.
And
that's all I can say.
For me, I felt more bad for AJ because I knew he felt bad than I did for the actual problem itself. So I was more worried about his feelings than I was the loss of the drone.
Didn't stop you from poking fun at him.
No, it did not. No, it did not. But that was hours later.
What a great day we had. We got an episode. Did we lose anything? Oh, the drone. I totally forgot. Remember the drone you lost?
But not only did I feel, so then I feel bad for him. Then he comes back to the ramp and he's bleeding everywhere. And I was like,
yeah.
dude, you made it worse.
Yep. Those wounds are finally healing.
Brother AJ, what
18
happened?
days later.
Brother AJ. But it was a fantastic trip, and over the next few weeks we'll be talking about that and some of these amazing. Not that specifically. The drone will be brought up probably 2 or 3 times an episode, but the actual trip and everything that went great, and obviously the episodes that we filmed while there will all be included in the podcast and obviously the actual TV show. But one thing, we went and learned to surf with Brother Steve, and Steve was like our liaison there. Awesome dude. And he does some sales and marketing work with us through the show. He's got he's just a cool dude.
He was awesome.
We'll have to put his Instagram handle up or in the posts about this.
I don't know how to pronounce his last name, so I'm not even going to.
That was why I'm saying Instagram handle.
Yeah,
it's
Steve.
like how's
I don't know either.
Yeah,
HEUS.
I've only ever seen it written. He's never said his last name to me.
Hughes.
Anyhow, Steve is like a really fantastic dude, and I'm excited to work with him on a bunch of other stuff. But he was like our liaison there, and he was teaching us to surf. And then while Jeffrey and AJ were out, Ryan and I were up on shore, and there's like these crazy there are pigeons, but they just look different because they're in a different environment and stuff. They're thinner and more friendly, and I think tourists feed them more than people that live in cities do.
Yeah,
I can believe that.
I made a little wager with Ryan that he couldn't catch one, and then but yeah.
I bet you won't bite this fish's head off. Oh, yeah?
I'll show you. That reminds me of the one time we really got Ryan, though. That's one of my favorite. We were on a trip. It was Louisiana. First night, we're driving. I'll never forget this. This is like one of the very few times Ryan showed his age. And so we're driving, and we get a flat tire. And it's like the worst kind of flat tire because we've got so much stuff in the back seat. Right? Like so much stuff in the back of the truck bed.
And it's not our car.
And it's not our car. It's a rental car.
Raining.
Yeah, and it's raining pretty good.
Raining.
We get a flat tire, and I say to AJ, I go watch this. And Ryan was like still getting a smoothie or whatever because it happened at a Smoothie King that we noticed it. And
so good.
Ryan's coming out, and I was like talking about changing a spare tire, and then Ryan popped up real quick. He's like, I know how to change a spare tire. I'm like, I bet you cannot change a spare tire on this truck because the jacks are so small and stuff. There's no way you can do it. I'll have to do it. And he's like, oh, I'll show you. And then AJ's just like, yeah. So then
guilty by association.
We all get out of the truck and stuff, and Ryan's like on a mission to prove a point. And then AJ and I go stand underneath the awning thing watching them.
Eating your smoothies.
Eating our smoothies. And Ryan's out there proving a point, changing the tire for us. And I was like, this is a big win for us. When did you realize?
Kyle kept winking at me.
Yeah, I know. I was like, he's doing it. When did you realize that really we knew you could change a spare tire? We just didn't want to do it.
I think so. I loosened the lugs, then jacked the truck up, and then when I was pulling the lugs the rest of the way off is when I realized.
They did this to me.
What am I
Which
doing?
was pretty
What am I
early
doing
on.
here?
Did you do like the peanut gallery in the back? Like, yep, do it. Get in there nice and deep. Like,
No,
you got a pretty mouth, boy.
no. After I started, they didn't talk to me again.
Yeah, it was
They didn't wanna bring
it was
attention
dangerous.
to it, I guess.
It was dangerous because if he would have, my worry was he'd figure out what we had done and then stop. And it started to rain pretty good, and he was already wet, so you might as well just let him be the only wet one. I mean, it's not.
Selfish.
Well, next time we get a flat tire, guess who's not?
Yeah, he
fishing it
won't.
out?
He'll never budge again.
Never
It'll only,
do it again.
But how many flat tires do you really get? You know what I mean? Why would I say that?
That for sure won't happen to me anytime in the near future.
The way home.
What
I'm
could
like,
go wrong?
come on.
And it's raining.
But anyhow, Ryan did catch the pigeon, and he did change that flat tire. And we have a video, actually. I took the video of him releasing the bird. So if we've got that video, I want to go ahead and roll that one right now. But this is Ryan catching the pigeon and then releasing it perfectly.
Pigeon. There we go.
It was so majestic, too.
Fly away.
Aw. You were so proud. You were so
It was
proud.
cool. They were just sitting there, and I was
You
like,
just walked up and grabbed it?
Yeah, you caught it very easily.
He chased it down, but it was like Rocky when he's like chasing like when he's chasing something. It was like in Rocky. But yeah, look how proud he is. But he did good. He
Kind
found
of
it.
makes you proud, huh?
It was funny because there was two ladies that were real concerned with what his plans were with that pigeon.
I think they were convinced you were going to kill it on the site.
Does the Aussie and eat bites?
that's what I said. What do they think I was going to do?
They were bracing.
Pigeons are good eating.
Next time, if that ever happens, you should start saying, like, be like, oh, you should bite it. Like,
No, I'll
stuff
just
like
be
that.
I'll be like, do you want to ring a snack? Or you want me to go get a knife? Just say that out loud so they can hear it.
We could cook it here on the beach. That's so exciting.
Yeah, that's like,
Beach fire.
yeah, people love
You
that.
would eat that?
Speaking of eating things,
Nice.
yes. One of the things that's going on right now, it's big news, is the bait ban in Michigan. So, in order to combat, that's Ted Nugent actually going on about the bait ban. He went and testified about the stupidity of the ban, and I'll explain both sides in the least biased way possible, which is not easy for me because I'm really one-sided on this. But chronic wasting disease is basically the deer form of scabies. Or what is it? Mad cow.
Creutzfeldt Jakob disease.
Now,
Jakob,
the way
forgot
this
that one.
actually started, I believe it was in Colorado, they running experiments that were funded for a while on elk and deer in Colorado. What they would do is they would inject massive amounts of scabies that from sheep, the sheep form, into the brains of elk and deer and things like that. in order to see if they could contract it and what it would take to contract it, what it would be like for them, and everything like that. Well, funding got cut off. Okay? Once funding was cut off, it would make sense that all the animals that now have chronic wasting disease, considering we believe it can be passed to different cervids, should be killed. So they're not put out. Instead, they released them in different areas.
That's what happened?
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. So they released them in different areas. And then that...
Be free, patient zero.
So, be free, patient zero. So they did that, and then it eventually got in the deer herd. Now, chronic wasting disease, it's pretty incredible what it can live through.
Yeah, I don't know what that one is. I just see it on billboards. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, chronic wasting disease, it can literally...
It's a prion, so it can live in the soil. It can't be like radiated. You can't cook it out. You can't freeze it out. You can't...
it just survives.
It just does, and it can live in the soil for like 7. They said 7 years.
I was going to say 7 years as well.
Indefinitely, they're not 100% sure. It's just a
now with the disease, the overall thought was that with that disease, they're going to die no matter what. But through the science and the studying that's been done, that doesn't appear to be true, and it actually looks like that
they're thriving.
That they can actually not thriving, but they can actually still reproduce as well. And there's been only reported, I believe, in Michigan 1 or 2 that were found dead, that they felt was dead by chronic wasting disease, and there's people that dispute that that's even the case. Now, the real danger is that, and the real fear that everyone has, is that if chronic wasting disease from the consumption of the meat from a deer could then be transferred to a human. And if that happened, you could pretty much kiss deer hunting goodbye. Because no one's going to do it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, would you? You know what I mean? If someone was like
that.
hey, if you eat a sheep, you could get this disease. Like, well, I'm not eating sheep.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
no
It's
doubt.
just like when, a couple bags of romaine lettuce have E. coli on them. And it's,
lettuce
and then
for
no
months.
one eats lettuce anymore. You know what I mean?
That's a very good analogy.
They said that it doesn't transfer from deer to human, but they also said that it doesn't transfer from squirrel to human, that whatever the prion thing is.
That's
for
in their
them.
brain.
And there's been a couple cases where people are squirrel hunters and they got Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, which is the human form of that. And they said that, well, maybe it's from eating squirrel. Even though there's no confirmed 100% this is what gave it to them, they're still freaking out about it. So now people are like, oh, I don't eat squirrel brain. We've done it and we're fine.
That's true. But the jury's still out whether we're fine. But
There you go.
Yeah. Clearly one of us is okay still.
So anyhow, the truth is, though, that the amount of deer that have been tested positive is actually a substantially lower number than what you would think. I don't even know that it's in the triple digits in Michigan. I think it was like 63 or something. Ted
like
Nugent said, yeah, it's like a low number. And with that being said, it's obviously something that's bad, and obviously something we don't want to happen, and obviously something we want to get rid of. And obviously there needs to be funding to make sure that we can stop it. Now the problem is, like you said, it lives in the ground. It can be passed. I don't even know that they're 100% sure on the science of how it's passed, but it can be passed from deer to deer, and they're worried about the spread of it for obvious reasons. Why they would have let ground zero deer out is always going to be beyond me. There's people that go all the way, the conspiracy theorists go all the way down to say that they did that because they knew that could ruin deer hunting, and that ruins deer hunting. Then you've got less people that care about their guns. Less people care about the guns. More likely you can take the guns away from people. Second Amendment goes on. You can see how that chain of events could create something, though.
Well, I mean, when you get something as weird as, these animals are sick, let's just let them go. Like, no one would think that. So I guess that is a good claim for, like, now you're going to get a bunch of conspiracies around it.
Right. And why wouldn't you? You know what I mean? Because there's people that believe that some ways that the different government sections will do whatever it takes to make people less attached to their guns in order to take them. So there's tons of people and proof of different things that could even be the case. Now, this story specifically, I'm not really sure that's why. What you probably had was people that studied on these deer and then were emotionally attached to them and didn't want to kill them. That would probably be the most likely thing, but maybe not. I don't know. So you have to be smart, though. Do you care about one deer or all the deer? So
I mean, maybe like when they lost funding, it was just like, all right, let's just leave shop, and then we have 6 deers in the back. Just let them go.
No, they actually what's really messed up is they shipped them different places and then let them go in different environments. Like they found good habitat for them, and then let them go like somewhere in Canada, somewhere in they like transported them to let them go in different areas. Yeah, from Colorado.
Did they take them back to their initial environment? Maybe.
I want to be careful not to start guessing. So that's I told you everything I know, and everything else from here on out would be a guess. So anyhow, with that being said, now chronic wasting disease is something we're fearful of because of that jump from deer to humans. For the most part, it really doesn't seem to be damaging the deer, and a lot of them are living and reproducing even once they've been tested, cowered. They've been tested positive, cowered, and tracked, and they're continuing to reproduce. And here's the thing. Deer lick each other all the time. They're very social creatures. They're always rubbing against each other, touching each other, licking each other, right next to each other. They introduce each other the same way dogs do. I mean, they're all up in each other's business. There's licking branches that they use as communication points too, where a buck will make a scrape, and they'll all chew on this licking branch to see who is there and smell it. And they're always swapping spit. They're always doing things like that. On top of that, the prion can live in the ground. Now, in order to slow the progression of chronic wasting disease in Michigan, one of the proposed ways to do it was to ban deer baiting by hunters, meaning that for the 2 or 3 months where we're hunting, and it's normally, for the most part, more deer are killed during the rifle season, just the first 2 days of the rifle season, than I think the entire rest of the season.
That's true.
Basically, for that month to 3 months, you could argue that people are deer hunting and would possibly be baiting, but realistically, most of the baiting is going to happen in a 2 to 3 week timeline, realistically, of the whole year.
I would agree.
That those, when you create food sources like that, where the deer are all eating out of the same pile, then they're more likely to all bite the same apple or share spit or something like that, pee in the area, poop in the area, and stuff like that. They're more likely to, it's unnatural for them to be eating that close to each other and spread the disease to each other that way.
Okay.
So in order to stop it, they ban deer baiting. That's the mentality behind it.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I'm glad you said that.
Now, here's the deal with it, though. And this is where that's the one side. Now, it's going to be impossible for me to be unbiased anymore. So the stupidity of that is the fact that, number one, deer lick each other. The prion lives in the ground. Deer are, they are licking, touching, sharing food, swapping spit, spraying, whatever they're humping during the rut, they're banging. Everything, all the time.
Licking freaking.
They are extremely social creatures, and they're doing those things anyways. And the fact that a hunter might have a gallon of apples that he just picked from under an apple tree and placed them a little closer to his tree stand is not going to create chronic wasting disease, and it's not going to contribute to the spread of it. And if it does contribute to it,
we got a bigger problem.
The statistics would be colossally low, and don't stand up to numbers and science. Because at the end of the day, you should be banning apple trees then.
Yeah.
Because apple trees have a bunch of bait underneath them, and it's all piled up, and that's completely fine. Yeah. But for me to move a couple of those apples closer to where I'm hunting suddenly puts the deer at risk. Yeah. And that's stupid.
And on top of that, some people put stuff out just to bring deer in to like their backyard or whatever.
That's true.
It's only a ban on hunting.
It really
is. It's not a ban on. Oh, I didn't know that. You can put stuff out, and as long as it's not hunting related.
That's a really good point.
But if this is actually a problem, then shouldn't that be banned too?
Correct, because it's still the same.
Like even though, yeah, sure, hunters might be contributing a lot more to that. It's still some, and if that's a problem, we should get rid of it.
Right, and there's a couple things on that too. So I want to remind me to go back, and I want to touch on baiting in the winter and what that can do to deer as well. I want to touch on that because that's actually dangerous. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, going back to the actual deer thing. So you can tell that if an apple tree, you pull a couple apples, a gallon of apples or something, and dump them a little closer to your tree stand, you're not putting the deer in any more danger than for apple trees to exist. You're not going to ban those. It's like the equivalent of banning water because somebody drowned. Yeah. It's like you need water. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. So my point to it was this, and Ted Nugent, he went and testified in much more elegant way and way meaner than I did about how stupid the science was behind this and why they would ban it. Now, here's what I want to talk about. A couple years ago, we went and did the youth hunt up at Pete's. We had 14 kids up there, okay? Every single kid that we took hunting in the 2-day youth season got a crack at a deer. 10 of them harvested deer. You can imagine not a bunch of kids, not all of them are sharpshooters. So, but every kid had at least a crack at a deer, okay? And we baited because we were allowed to. It was completely legal then. And that gave those hunters opportunities. This year, took 14 kids up for the youth season. We harvested 1 deer, and that was the only one that the kids got the shot at. Now, nothing changed except for the bait. If anything, there's actually more deer there now. And I am proposing that not only is the bait ban also really bad for the economy, because it generates a lot of money, and there's a lot of small businesses based around it, and it helps gas stations and party stores in small towns and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an expensive thing that everybody did. Not only does it hurt that year 1, but I think year 2, this bait ban is going to damage hunting to an unprecedented level. And I think year 2 is the scary year, and here's why. All those kids that went up north and all those hunters that went up north this year that maybe get 3 days a year to hunt, maybe get 5 days a year to hunt, off of work. Most people get 1 to 2 weeks of vacation time. They might use a couple days of it a year to go up and deer hunt. And now that they can't bait and they go up this year and they don't see a thing when they always harvested deer before, how incentivized is that person to buy a license the next year? I mean, it's got to go down 60%, 50%, 30%. Give me something. Yeah. But it's going to go down.
Yeah.
And the real hypocrisy of that is that the sale of the hunting and fishing licenses are what fund the research and the hopeful cure or hopeful fixing of the chronic wasting disease and other diseases of the deer herd.
Oh, yeah.
That's where the funding comes from. So by stopping baiting based on no proof and no science and no logic, you are actually preventing yourself from receiving the funding needed to actually solve the problem. And it's so often that we see, especially in politics nowadays, where we make a knee-jerk reaction idea to fix something, but it doesn't actually fix anything, and you're cutting off your own foot in a way.
You can't fix it with feelings.
You can't. I like that. You can't fix it with feelings. And the reality is that's what they've done now. I propose a compromise. I am willing to admit that less than 1%, that the likelihood of chronic wasting disease being spread because of hunters having bait for a couple weeks out, I'm willing to admit that maybe 0.001% of that is dangerous for the spread of chronic wasting disease. If they will admit that an apple tree is just as dangerous.
Nice.
And because of that, here's my compromise. Instead of banning bait, use common sense for the love of God and just change how you have to put the bait out. Meaning you can still allow only 2 gallons or only 1 gallon or whatever it is, but guarantee that it's spread over a 50-foot by 50-foot radius.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Or whatever it might be. So that the likelihood goes down that they're all eating off the same thing. Or that they're all stumbling upon the same apple or whatever it might be.
Then at that point, it's just like them finding food in the forest.
Right. Or buy an apple tree.
Yeah.
And then that doesn't increase the likelihood of the spread at all. And then that's a good compromise to me. And I think that's what would make the most sense. And it would have at least impact. But for this season, for that, it's down. And you look at all the news articles right now, they're saying record lows of deer hunters this year. All over the state of Michigan. That's what I'm seeing in all the news articles and stuff like that. And I think this is why. I think that they can't continue to do things. Jeffrey, you're a mess today. You're slouching. You're freaking knocking the microphone over. You're just having a rough day. But with that being said, I just think they need to use some common sense here. Create the spread ban. Make it so hunters can still participate. Make it so they're not losing the opportunity. This is not the West. We're not hunting in, Hawaii or Colorado or something, or Washington, where we were able to spot and stalk and cover lots of land. Michigan is divided into acres of small amounts of forest and farmland, and people normally have 80 to 100 acres to hunt. That's where they hunt. Some of them have 20, some of them have 30. They make that deer habitat as attractive to deer as possible, and they put bait in a responsible place so they can get the deer frequenting there so they can have some success. And if you take that away from the majority of hunters, because not everybody, sorry, weekend warriors, everyone that goes, 7 weeks a year and gets all these deer hunting in and thinks nobody should shoot anything smaller than a 12-point buck, I apologize,
goodness.
We're not you, but you're the 5%. The people that can only go a couple days a year, we still have to keep them interested too, because the more people we have in the sport, the better off the sport's going to be and the more funding we're going to have. So that's
very well put.
My take on the baiting. Now, I want to move on to a different topic. Now that I've concluded on that and beat it into the ground. One of the stories we talked about was we did a mountain hunt in Washington for chukar. Oh my gosh, was it crazy? And oh my gosh, was it beautiful. Yeah. Okay? The chukar hunt was nuts. Now, we went out with Ryan's brother, Rich, who we had never got to meet before because he's out in Washington. Obviously, Ryan's met him, but we had never gotten a chance to meet him.
I was going to say, I've met him.
And he's a really, really cool guy, and he's always been super supportive of the show and writes into the podcast, and just, I like him a whole bunch. And obviously, he's Ryan's family, so he's our family, so it was cool to go there and stay with him, and I got to meet Ryan's nieces and nephews that I had never met before, and they're not shy, so we had fun with them right out of the gate. Cool. And his wife, and everybody's just really, really kind. And we ended up going on this chukar hunt in eastern Washington, in the mountains. Beautiful, beautiful area. And when we went out, Rich raises dogs, and he's a really good dog trainer, which is funny because your dad lives all the way in Michigan, and Rich lives all the way in Washington, and they've always had communication, but not as much. But it's just so funny that they both have the exact same interests. You know what I mean? Like,
they're like carbon copies.
They really are carbon copies.
It's nuts.
It is, but it's cool. Anyhow, we go out there, and he's got a German wire hair that is actually considered a Drahtar because of the way that it was raised, and also like the different genes and the training and what it's capable of and everything. And the Drahtar is an amazing dog because they can waterfowl hunt. They can, they're pheasant hunters. They're upland hunters. They can do anything. They can retrieve. They're just incredible. And they happen to be one of the bigger dogs that you take hunting as well.
I didn't think they were as big as how they are.
What is he?
That was the most.
He was
surprising
100
part.
pounds.
Yeah, at least. Yeah,
and
he had lost 15 pounds.
Yeah, he was down in weight.
He was huge.
He's getting that summer bod going. But so we go out hunting, and his dog is 5 years old and extremely well trained and extremely forceful when it comes to cuddling. Especially at night, which I learned that you will love me. And so we go out with him and get to know Rich and stuff like that. Like you said, he's a carbon copy of Mr. Parks. Super nice guy, just unprecedented amounts of knowledge. He's like an encyclopedia.
Interesting facts. On everything.
On everything. If you look out the left window here, you'll see, and I mean, we're like 2 hours from his house and where we're hunting. So we're in the middle of nowhere, and he's still like, this railroad was built in blah, blah, blah. It's just.
If you look, you see that grass right there? It looks like normal grass, but just next to it, there's that other grass, and that has medicinal properties.
So
wow.
But we go out with him, and I'll dive right into the meat and potatoes of what happened. We go out, and we end up coming across a group of chukar that were on inside a huge valley in between two large mountains, I guess you would say, right? I mean, am I describing this properly? Beautiful country, and I believe we got a picture of it here coming up here soon. But
Canyon. There we go.
Canyon, thank you.
Yep.
I'm on the Grand Canyon. Do you remember the old hover around commercials? I know I said this to you guys 100 times, but the old hover around commercials that you see during Price is Right when you're homesick from school, and they'd be like, I'm on a hover round and I'm in the Grand Canyon. It was like the hover round commercials.
Take me to space.
Yeah, and
clearly they didn't get there on their own.
But I shouted that like 6 times a day while we were there.
It was funny.
Like it never got old. But a group of chukar were on the mountainside there, and we saw them tucked down into the canyon. Like, it looks easy to get there, but it's obviously not. And it's like you can see for 20, 30 miles well. So you have like a misconception of like how far
Usually
things.
you can only see a couple miles. It's not that bad.
Yeah, and then all of a
It's
sudden
bad.
you're walking, and you're like, how did I get down here? So we end up.
Yeah, proportions are offset.
It's
very quickly on the mountains.
Really, really. I mean, it's strange.
Yeah.
To the level. And it also surprised me is like how things appeared out of nowhere. Like, you'd just be staring at the same section of the mountain for like an hour, and then all of a sudden these birds would just show up there, and you're like, where were you at before? Like, how did you get there now?
The other problem is you got the dog running up and down the mountain, and you're like, oh, I just hiked down there. The dog's right down there. I watched him go down there in like 30 seconds. I can get down there in 30 seconds. And it's like 20 minutes later, then you're down there.
Or that you can see someone perfect and hear them perfect.
That was the crazy
But trying to
part.
get to them takes forever.
What astonished me is when you guys were on the other side of the mountain, because AJ and I ended up staying because we felt that the dogs were slightly overworked because it was so warm too. We got all ready. And
Which is another thing. It was like 32, 34 degrees out that day. But on these mountains, when the sun's out, it like you feel the heat coming from the ground.
It's super
it's bouncing
strange.
off the ground, coming back at you.
Yeah. It was like 40 or 50 or something.
I mean,
But
it was
I
40 or
was
50 in the
sweating,
afternoon. It was
so-
32 when we got there. And I started putting on like a jacket and then a vest. And Rich goes, "You will not want anything longer than a long sleeve T-shirt." I'm like, "There's snow over there, pal." He goes, "Trust me." So I listened to him, but I was like, "Oh my gosh, you didn't!" And then you were shedding layers almost instantly.
yeah.
We walked for 5 minutes and you started shedding layers. But anyhow,
I'm glad we had him.
AJ and I stayed on one side of the canyon. The guys went down and then back up to another side of the canyon. Now, we had seen birds tuck up against the side that AJ and I were on. The dogs ran through there and we thought maybe the birds got out. And then through a little bit of, we were filming, to try and like get different scenes and talks and stuff like that. And I kept falling down the mountain because of how steep it was and the rocks go out from underneath you. And we were doing that kind
It
of
was
thing.
very steep.
And all of a sudden I kick up a bird. And I go to lift up to shoot, and I should have. But at the time, when the bird flushed up at my feet, it went over the valley, you know what I mean, of the, in between, because you got here and here, and it went out to the middle, and I knew that you guys were down here. And because you were to my left, and now the bird was going to the left, it was like, I can't shoot. But I could have, because technically you're like a mile down, but I also didn't know how the shot would drop. In my head, I didn't feel safe pulling the trigger, so I didn't. I go, "Bird, bird," I yell, and then you guys, it like knew where you guys were and then went away, so no one ever got a shot at it. I walk up a few more feet, it happens again. And I'm like, "Bird, bird, bird." And I was like, okay, so where are they exactly? So then I start lining up. Another bird jumps up, startles me, because then I was like, all right, we're already past where they'll be. And it flushes out of nothing. I don't even know where it came from. It was just rocks there, but then the bird flew, and I lift and I shoot, and that thing folds. And it was the weirdest thing, because the bird folds, and I made a really long and good leading shot on it, because they're so fast. And I see it fold, and then like 15 minutes later when it landed, because it just was falling forever.
Yeah, because
It lined up that it had the momentum going forward, that it was going to go right to the middle of the valley in the worst possible part.
I compared it to when you see people in movies doing that wing gliding thing where they're skydiving and then they tuck all their limbs together and makes them go faster. It did that, and I'm watching it come down the mountain going
100 miles an hour.
it was going so fast.
And then it didn't land far from me.
No.
And it hits, and it's still so steep. It was like that scene from Hot Rod when he just keeps falling and falling and falling. It was like a snowball going
Still
down.
tumbling at like 50 miles an hour.
Yeah, it just
Another
kept going,
30 feet.
going.
So then, okay, so basically the dog now is down with you guys, because AJ and I were the dogs up by us.
Yeah.
The dog is running ragged looking for my bird. Okay? We end up finding the bird. AJ ends up finding it. But the dog runs himself ragged up and through there and everything else.
To the dog's account, it was very dry, and apparently that messes with their ability to pick up scent.
Yeah.
Which is why it couldn't find the bird.
And there was like a 30 square mile radius where we were all sure the bird probably was.
Oh, yeah.
So there's a lot of things working against the poor dog. But anyhow, and obviously there was more than we knew. So then they start going up the next mountainside. AJ and I continue what we're doing. They work all the way up the other mountainside for probably a good hour and a half. Meanwhile, the dog's running it the whole time, but also climbing the mountain. At this time, the dog's already pushed like something like 11 or 12 miles, Rich said on his phone.
Yeah, it like tripled us.
Yeah.
It was like 4,000 feet of elevation or
We did
something.
that, yeah.
Something crazy.
Yeah. So then, unbeknownst to me and AJ, the dog, and I'll let Ryan take over from here because I wasn't there, but the dog does something different, lays down underneath a shaded tree.
Yeah, we didn't see it.
Yeah. So what had happened? It was me, Jeff, and Rich, and the dog, and you guys were on the other side of the mountain. So it's like this, and you guys came down, or we came down while you guys were still up here, and then we came up the other side and went like around the mountain like this, came up,
And
went
out,
back
yep.
around, and then came up, and then there's like this ridge, and we went just over that, and it was like another valley, and that's where some birds had flushed, and Rich actually got both of them with
that's
two
right.
shots.
They did flush.
He's a beast.
Yeah, and so the dog was searching for it, and couldn't find it because there's no scent on anything. And he was panting really hard, and then he lays down in the shade under some brush, and he's panting, and then Rich's buddy, who was there,
He did find that bird.
with his
was in that bush.
yeah, he did get
So to his credit,
God bless him.
he found it and then he just laid down on it.
yeah.
It's in here, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He came out and he had a little bit of blood on his mouth, and we're like, he found a bird, perfect. And he was like, yeah, it's in here. Come get it.
Yeah, and we were trying to fight for him to retrieve it, but he just laid down, and he was panting, and Rich's buddy showed up with his dog, and his dog went and got the other bird, and we were just chilling out for a second, just letting Zeno recover, and we'd been giving him water this whole time, but something wasn't right when we were all still sweating, standing still because of the heat coming off the mountain. And the dog had been running all day, and then the dog just stops panting, just stops, and he didn't pass out, but he was just laying there like he hadn't done anything at all the entire day. And Rich's buddy, who was there with us helping us, said that he actually knew of a dog that they tried carrying out of the mountains and weren't able to get it out because it died of heat stroke.
Yeah.
And that was our immediate fear. Is that
Yes, yeah. And that's
the Xeno
so
there.
sad.
I know.
And so we were trying to figure out what we should do. Rich's buddy was going to head back to the vehicle, and he took off, and then me, Jeff, and Rich tried to come up with a plan, and then I went. How far was it? It was like a little over half a mile
Something
back
like
to.
that.
like 0.6
But not like
or
not like a
0.7.
straight half a mile, like
Line.
kind of up and down mountains to get.
Well,
back
that's
to
it.
that.
Down 4 times.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So as the crow flies in a straight line from a satellite, it's half a mile. But you also have to go up and down these mountains, which it doesn't count that. So it's
Yeah.
farther than half a mile.
30 miles, in my opinion.
Might as well have been.
So I went up this mountain, up and down, back to the vehicles to get water, and I just stuffed every pocket I could full of water bottles and brought it back
It was
to
a
them.
workout to make one leg, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And so, yeah, before I went, I just dropped all the gear I had, everything, just stripped down
Just
to
threw
make
the
myself
cameras.
just threw them off the mountain.
Yeah.
Just to make myself as light as possible, and it was still a struggle. And came back, and we were pouring water all over Zeno and all that, and he was not reacting well. He was just blank stares. And so then we decided we're going to have to carry him out. And being as tired as we are, carrying a 100-pound
The
dog.
dog's completely unresponsive.
Yeah, no, it's like when you pick him up, nothing's happening.
We tried Rich just carrying him, like just throwing him over his shoulders. That wasn't working. So then we tried both Rich and I, like doing this and then putting him over both of our shoulders. That wasn't happening. It was very awkward.
Yeah, and it was impressive how far Rich carried that
Yeah.
dog up the mountain.
Yeah. I'm like, Rich, please let me help. He's like, I got it. I'm like, this is silly.
Yeah.
Let me help. And he was like, okay, we can both do it. Okay, at least that's something.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was wild how far he carried that dog, but
but he kept us cool.
yeah, the entire time.
That's what was incredible. So this is his pride and joy, his baby, his dog that he's raised for 5 years, trained for 5 years, did everything to, and we literally think it's going to die of heat stroke. The organs seem to be shutting down. The dog quit panting. The dog's not moving. The dog's eyes are not dilating. Moving a finger, it's not responding. AJ and I ended up going all the way back to the trucks and then trying to find a way to get the truck up the mountain to them, but couldn't. We ended up having to give up and then start running. We had to run all the way back over to them.
Poor choice.
Get to them, yep. Ended up discovering that the dog needed Karo syrup because it was not heat stroke at all. And that's Jeffrey. This is where Jeffrey's really good, though. The guy got over a 30 on his ACT without studying. Like, he's brilliant. I mean, he'll walk into a wall that's looking right at him, but book smart, he's just brilliant. And research
You say
stuff.
that like that happens.
Hey, it happened. Then, but book smart wise and research wise, and also being meticulous, He is the best at those things, period. Nobody's better than Jeffrey. Now, he starts researching on the mountain, and he's smart enough to go, I don't think this is heat stroke. I think it's blood sugar issue. And that's Jeffrey being Jeffrey. Just
unfortunately, this is after we've already been like
waterboarding the dog.
Some water. He's hot. We got to get water on him.
We're like pouring water on this poor dog, and it wasn't even that. So long story short, Rich, in being calm, goes out on Facebook and actually posts where we are and what happened and what we need. And people come out on a hunting for him. People we don't know drive out in the middle of nowhere with their ATVs to come pick us up to get that dog off the mountain. And that is how good the hunting and fishing community is at helping each other. Just a Facebook post. Now I'm sure Rich will be friends with him for life. But just...
I think in total 6 people showed up. And some stranger on a dirt bike who saw what was happening came and helped.
Yeah, and I mean, we're in the middle of nowhere. You got no cell phone service. You know?
It's hard
they all
to
came over that one.
Adjust.
They all came over that one hill. And the first thing we saw was that guy on a dirt bike. And we're like, that's the guy who came to help. What's he going to do on a dirt bike? God.
Yeah.
But then it ended up, he was
ATV
just going
came.
with the guy with the ATV. So he gets it all the way there, and they actually brought us out. Rich's friends, too, worked out to bring out Carol syrup. We ended up getting Carol syrup to the dog, and that started to bring life back into him, that sugar to get it back into him. It turned out he had an infection.
It's not. It's appendicitis.
Okay.
It's not an infection.
Oh, I thought he had an infection.
No.
So he had appendicitis.
It's pretty much diabetes.
Okay. And so what he was experiencing would be like the equivalent of like a diabetic shock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just shutting down.
And that's why that was happening. So the Carol syrup started bringing back to life. And we actually have a video here of once we got back to the truck with sound of him starting to recover.
Who's a good boy now? Are you good now?
What do you mean now?
Well, he's good all day. He's happier now. Good boy.
I've seen that.
But we ended up
First
getting
sign
him
of
back.
life.
We ended up getting him back after the mountain. But what I wanted to talk about real quick and then wrap this up was the fact of how inspiring it was to see Rich, who had his pride and joy and a dog that he cared about so much, still be the strongest and most level-headed person on the mountain. He was the one that made the Facebook post. He was the one that carried the dog the majority of the way. He was the one that stayed calm with different ideas. He was the one talking on the phone to 9 different vets and stuff like that. He didn't appear shaken to the point where I was nervous that he didn't understand the severity of it.
Oh.
But he did. And it always said that Jordan Peterson, the clinical psychologist, talks about how you want to be the type of person that you are the strongest person at your father's funeral so that people can rely on you because you can stay level-headed and deal with situations as a man and still be the best and strongest person there to help the people you care about. And for that, getting to meet Rich at that level and knowing that he's a dad raising 2 kids means that there's going to be 2 better kids in this world. And I was inspired by how calm he stayed and the fact that we were able to save the dog. With that, thank you so much for tuning into the Greenway Outdoors podcast. Check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. We're also on Carbon TV and NRM Streamcast. Thanks so much for tuning in. Stay green.
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Greenway Outdoors. Check us out on NRM Streamcast, YouTube, Carbon TV, and everywhere podcasts can be found. Please submit all show ideas to thegreenwayoutdoors@gmail.com. See you next week. Stay green.